Den Show.
2 weeks from tonight, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee will rank the teams for the first time in this bracket. At least the first iteration will be filled out. Glad to have you with us. College Football Playoff Top 25, along with Booger McFarland, Joey Galloway, and Greg McElroy. I am merely Reese Davis. Year 2 of the 12-team playoff, and we do have some changes in the way the field is going to be seeded this year. Remember last year you had to learn the difference between ranking and seeding. Not so this time around. So 12-team playoff is going to still have the 5 highest-ranked conference champions and 7 at-large teams as ranked by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. But the difference is this. The top 4 seeds are the 4 highest-ranked teams. Last year, we ran into all of the differences, and the teams that got the bye actually did not perform well in the playoff. If it's 4 teams from the Big Ten, it's 4 teams from the Big Ten. That's just the way it goes. It'll start on December 19th with the first-round games on campus. Teams seeded 5 through 8 will play at home. From there, we'll move into bowls and neutral sites, and ultimately the national championship game will be determined in Miami. The quarterfinals and semifinals are, as you would expect, in the major bowl games, and ultimately that trophy will be claimed in Miami Gardens, Florida. So, guys, here's how we're going to do the exercise for tonight. We'll use the AP poll as the rankings to give you a visual of how the bracket would look if the rankings were to mirror what is in the AP poll at the moment. So let's start going down the rankings, and the number 1 team in the country would be, in this case, the number 1 seed. Reigning national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Joey, they lose all of those guys on defense, and they seem to be even better.
They're a really good football team. It's going to be interesting to see what the rest of their schedule. Doesn't look like much of a challenge now that Penn State has fallen off. They may not see a real challenge until they get to the Big Ten championship game, which then might be Indiana.
And on that subject, Joey, Indiana is now up to number 2, highest ranking in school history. And, you know, this is a thing, Greg, that you see across college football with the expanded conferences. Ohio State and Indiana don't play each other. In fact, the Big 12 is the only Power 4 conference where the 2 teams are at the top of the standings right now, actually have a game in the regular season scheduled against each other. But Indiana, they also, after their playoff run last year, look as if they might be better.
I think they are better, Reese, and I think they proved that by going on the road to Oregon a few weeks ago. That's a top 2, maybe top 3 win in all of college football, given where it was, who it was against, and how hostile that environment was, and just how complete that performance was from Indiana. So I think they're the real deal.
Number 3, just behind the Hoosiers right now, ranked 3rd in the country is Texas A&M. They have a big trip coming up to LSU. I would submit, probably to some controversy, that Texas A&M has an argument, and perhaps the winning argument, for the best win of the season. They won at Notre Dame. I'm very high on Notre Dame. I think Anthony McFarland and I will discuss that a little bit later on in the program. At number 4, just behind A&M. Boy, all was lost for Alabama after that terrible performance at Florida State. And since then, all the Tide has done is just continually book knockoff ranked team after ranked team after ranked team.
They've gotten better and better, Reese. And it's amazing how we tried to bury them after that Florida State loss. Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in America. No disrespect to Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, but he's playing at a high level. And they're so physical at the line of scrimmage. Defensively, if they can continue to get better, they're going to be a tough outcome playoff time.
Okay, now I want to emphasize here, this is the projection based on the AP poll. If this were the final ranking, notice this. You would have 2 teams from the Big Ten and 2 teams from the SEC who would project into the quarterfinals with byes. But then there is a nod to the old school playoff, too, because of potential Alabama-Georgia matchup in the second round, with Georgia being ranked 5th in the country book.
I love this Georgia team. Their mentality is that of a one mentally tough team. And no matter how much they're down, no matter when they're down, they continue to come back over and over. And Gunnar Stockton has turned into one of the better dual-threat quarterbacks in America. It's been a fun team to watch, especially in the second half.
So in the AP poll, all we're seeing so far, and it sort of speaks to the power leagues. You've seen SEC teams, you've seen Big Ten teams, and here's another Big Ten team at number 6, the Oregon Ducks. Their only loss at home against number 2, Indiana.
Oregon's interesting because you talk about their only loss being Indiana, but their only win really to this point is on the road at a Penn State team that we've seen since then sort of fall off. Oregon is in an interesting situation because you look at Ohio State, you look at Indiana, still undefeated in conference and a clear path to get to the Big Ten championship game. Oregon is a team that when the committee looks at their resume, it'll be very interesting. They do have later on, they have USC, they go to Washington, and those may be pretty good wins, but I think Oregon is a team that needs to play for style points for the rest of their season.
And of course they have a chance, Big Ten championship game if things fall their way, maybe to move up in the rankings, but as it stands now, Georgia would have a home game in the first round, Oregon would have a home game in the first round, and how about 2 home games in the playoff in the state of Georgia? The Rambling Wreck still unbeaten at number 7, McElroy.
And Reese, the ACC is a fascinating conversation right now. And Georgia Tech, they have a very high likelihood to make it to Charlotte for the ACC championship game. If they could somehow run the table, they should be a heavy favorite in every game with the exception of the regular season finale. That's a home game against the Georgia Bulldogs. So if they win that, there's actually a possibility that Georgia Tech could be playing in the ACC championship game and yet already secured a college football playoff spot. So that's a fascinating dynamic to follow with the Ramblin' Wreck.
You might see a lot of that in several leagues, too, as we get to the championship game in this era of the expanded playoff. The final home game would belong to Ole Miss. Ole Miss looked as if they had Georgia on the ropes on the road. Bulldogs with a great comeback in the end. And now the Rebels have another test this week against Oklahoma.
Yeah, and Reese, and Trinidad Chandler's had everybody Googling where Ferris State was. This Ole Miss team has gone as he has gone this year. And I don't know if it's possible, but maybe we respect Ole Miss more even now than the fact that they would have won against Georgia. They played them tough. And if Trinidad played a little bit more consistent in the second half, they had a good opportunity to beat the Bulldogs.
What would this look like? An 8-9 matchup, the 9th-ranked team according to the AP poll. And again, I know I keep emphasizing this. This is a visual of what it would be if this is how the committee stacked them up. Miami would go on the road. Miami had a lot of support as the #1 team in the country before falling on Friday night against Louisville. Cardinals had a brilliant game plan. Cardinals still in the mix, too, on down there, still in the fight for the ACC.
And if you look at Miami, Reese, the fascinating thing about them, while Carson Beck did come back to earth a little bit, they might have the best offensive and defensive lines. And while it didn't show up last week, that's a pretty good recipe for long-term success. And one other layer of the evaluation of Miami. They own the head-to-head against Notre Dame. So in the event in which they don't even make it to Charlotte for the ACC title game and they're measured against a Notre Dame team that might be viewed as an at-large, that game in week 1 on Sunday night where the Hurricanes knocked off the Irish, that could be weighed heavily in them actually getting an at-large bid instead of the Irish.
Next team in the bracket, according to their ranking in the AP poll, a 7-10 matchup, lots of gold, a lot of anchor down, Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech. The Commodores have Missouri this weekend, really big game coming off that impressive performance against LSU.
This Vandy team feels different than the Vandy team we've seen in the past. The Vandy team in the past, they might upset an Alabama team and get a big win. But this Vandy team, they're talented. Diego Pavia is playing with great confidence. They were a couple possessions away from knocking off Alabama at Alabama. They got the big win against LSU, which you mentioned. And you look at the rest of their schedule, they got a shot. They can get past Missouri. They do have a tough game at Texas and then at Tennessee in their schedule. But this feels like a Vandy team that can go compete with anyone in the country and can beat anyone in the country. We're going to find out what they're made of moving forward.
Probably if Vanderbilt wants to stay in the mix to get to the SEC championship game, the game against Missouri on Saturday is a must-win. Now, the importance of the next team that we're going to show you is this. This is the final at-large spot because remember, the 5 highest-ranked conference champions automatically get into the field.